Well, Jason Hammer is here with a couple of very special in-studio guests.
We're going to talk a little Dillinger today.
Okay.
There's a podcast that's about to come out, and here to break it all down is Joe and Travis. Joe, Travis, welcome to the Hammer and Nigel show. Joe, we'll start with you here. Tell us about this project.
Hey, guys, first off, thanks for having us. We couldn't be more excited to announce this new project that we're heading. I'm Joe Malillo. I'm a former TV reporter. I used to work at WIBC TV here in Indianapolis. Yep. And over the years, I've met my good friend, Travis Thompson. He is officially the great nephew of John Dillinger. Hoosier native and public enemy number one. Travis, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
So, Travis, give us your background here.
So I'm John Dillinger's great nephew. I'm also a police officer. I've been in law enforcement for 22 years. I got interested into the Dillinger lure when I was a child because my grandmother, Frances Dillinger Thompson, is his baby sister. So growing up, I'd see the little picture of John holding the wooden gun and Thompson machine gun. It got me real interested.
Right.
And so, remind everybody who John Dillinger is, if you wouldn't. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I think maybe some people listening right now, just for people, reset who he is and what he did for a living.
Yeah. You know? Before or after he went to jail for the first time. So in 1934 and 1933, so over a half-year period, John Dillinger was the most famous gangster and bank robber of the United States, and so much so that he became public enemy number one in the FBI's list. He's from Mooresville and Indianapolis, born in Indianapolis, moved to Mooresville on a farm. The farm still stands today, their family farm. And he was just well known. He was across the country as this guy who went in and robbed banks during the Depression era, which a lot of people looked at him as a hero because they were screwed over by the banks, and ultimately he was getting them back for them.
Now, Travis, how has pop culture depicted John Dillinger? There's been a couple movies. I know Johnny Depp played Dillinger in Public Enemies, yes. I think was the name of the film. As a whole, how do you think pop culture has been in depicting your descendant?
They've done their typical Hollywood, made him out to be ruthless. They've portrayed him as a killer. We can almost prove from the FBI files he did not kill anybody.
That's a bold claim right there.
Yes, we can prove when Officer O'Malley from East Chicago PD was killed, John was in Florida being tracked by the FBI. So he couldn't have made it in 1934 from Florida, especially on Daytona area, to East Chicago.
Wow. Okay. So that's a little nugget of what we're going to get into here. So there have been different TV shows and documentaries in the last couple of years. I think the big headline was that there was going to be an exhume taking place at Crown Hill, but that didn't happen. So walk me through why that didn't happen.
Well, my father, Mike Thompson, who's the closest living relative, he's the nephew, had filed to exhume the body. During our investigation, we have found there's some discrepancies of the body, how the face looks, ears look, discrepancies on the autopsy report. So
and this had been rumored for a while that really wasn't Dillinger in that spot.
Yes. So, I mean, his own father, my great-grandfather, said it wasn't his son when he went and identified the body. Then he was pulled into a side room and then decided, yeah, that's my son.
The FBI had a conversation with him in the side room after.
Wow.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the cemetery, Crown Hill, they had approved every other requests for something like this to be done up until yours, right?
Yes, they were on board with this until supposedly an FBI agent appeared, showed up, requested copies of all their files on the Dillinger grave, and literally that day after, they stopped working with us.
So bizarre.
So what do you think? In that spot at Crown Hill, who do you think is in there?
I'm not really sure who's in there.
Don't answer that.
That's on the podcast. Come on.
Yeah, it's on the podcast. No, I go ahead, Travis. I was just kidding. You can answer it, obviously.
I got to look at it two different ways. My law enforcement side says follow the evidence. The evidence points that it's not him. My family side wants to believe that it was him, but the evidence outweighs my family feeling.
Right. I want to go back to something you said earlier, and Joe, I want to get your reaction to it when Travis said, Dillinger's never shot anybody. Like, And you kind of said it in passing, which I think that's a pretty bold claim. Like, people listening for the first time are like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me he didn't shoot anybody? Like, what have you learned, Joe, from working on this project with Travis, the retired FBI agent that you guys work with? What have you learned throughout this entire process?
Yeah, do your own research. I mean, I would say that the FBI files show pretty clearly that his location on the day of the O'Malley shooting would have been impossible for him to be from Florida into Indiana in that time period, during the roads, during the weather, because he would have had to travel. So I'm pretty much on the camp of he didn't shoot and kill anybody. He was also, partners, one of his gang members was Babyface Nelson, and Babyface Nelson was a sociopath, like would murder people for fun, and John never liked that. And in fact, the demeanor of John, his what was known about him from witness reports, from people, he would give movie tickets to kids as he was literally robbing a bank, and saying to people would take their money out and say, hey, I'm here for the bank's money. I'm not here for yours. Put your money away. So that's the kind of guy he was, and it fits that he wouldn't be a murderer. But he was a gangster, and we get a lot of kickback on that. Hey, why are you glorifying someone who broke the law?
Right.
How much the documentary that was being made by the network, how much, that was getting some publicity, right? The documentary, the very fact that it was being made, the fact that they were going to exhume the body of John Dillinger, but there was a lot of media coverage, news media. We talked about it, I remember, at length. Do you think that had sort of a negative impact on those efforts?
I really don't. I think the FBI's involvement is what hindered it. I really do.
Why do you think the FBI is so passionate about this? I mean, it's not like this guy died just 5 years ago. I mean, this is
90 years on July 22nd.
Yeah, 90 years ago.
Wow.
Why is the FBI so passionate and involved in this project?
Well, you got to think the FBI built a reputation on getting their first public enemy number one, right? It was during J. Edgar Hoover's era of his reign. I believe that either one, and I don't have anything against the FBI agents that are currently working. I have no problem with them at all. But I think there might be some higher ups that are afraid that if we do this and he's not there, they have something to answer for. This might have been some of Hoover's cover up, and they don't want to answer for it.
There were reports that other members of your family, Travis, weren't real happy with the project. Is that true?
Yes, there's parts of the family that are not happy.
Is that hard for you to move forward with projects like this, knowing that you're ticking off some family members?
It is, but to me, I feel closure means more to the family and to history than us. I think once we can get past this, I think we can come together as a family and get along. But, things happen. This is a history making thing, and I really feel that it would be closure, not for just us, but our descendants that have passed away.
There are rare times in the world, in history, that people that are laid out for you. And this is one of those times. We're literally on the brink of being able to solve a mystery. I mean, I'm not talking about Capone's vault. I'm not talking about, like, maybe there's something in there. It would take us finding out DNA purpose in that grave to see who that is, and that would give us an answer to something that we have evidence that it might not be him, and it would literally change history.
All right, little fact or fiction here, because you bring up Al Capone's vaults, and that reminded me, is there any truth at all to this rumor that's out there? There's some sort of buried treasure somewhere in Mooresville that Dillinger left behind.
Well, there is.
We're not telling you.
Yeah. there is missing money. There is, and we did find a map on the farm. When we were shooting the documentary. So, if he's burying a map, then he's burying treasure. So I can link the two together.
Now, without giving away the coordinates, obviously, because I know you're not going to do that, but what type of map was this? Like, was it just an old random road map, or was this something where he might have buried something?
It's a 1934 Shell gas station road map that was inside a mason jar. It's of the United States, not just of Indiana.
And it had routes throughout India,
Yes.
or throughout the country that pointed to different locations that have been correlated with his journeys. So, and then we have a lot of evidence, and that for that specifically. So we're not only, there's two main mysteries here that we go over in the project, and Number one, is he in the grave? Number two, where's the money?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a little break here.
Let's talk about the podcast next.
Yeah, take a little break here. Jump on the YouTube right now. We got the cameras in studio. We're rolling. Man, some fascinating stuff going on here, some hot takes, and we're going to talk more about this Dillinger podcast when we come back. This is the Hammer and Nigel Show.
You know, one of the things I love about my Galaxy concrete garage floor is that it's glossy.
For roofing and siding. 100-444-90.
Other important documents.
Up and go down to Fletcher. Eastbound 70.
About the podcast center here at the Hammer and Nigel Show, having a fascinating conversation about John Dillinger. And in studio with us, Joe Malello. He is a podcaster and a host of this Dillinger project, former TV reporter here in Indianapolis, and Travis Thompson, John Dillinger's great nephew. So, Joe, tell us about the podcast.
Sure. Podcast is basically a layout for everybody to decide on their own. We're sick of
What's the name?
Digging Up Dillinger.
Digging Up Dillinger.
It releases on Saturday at 12:01. The first 3 episodes will drop, and then from then on out, we'll release on Mondays. You got to have it on the drive to work. And we have the podcast, and then it's also going to be on YouTube as well under Digging Up Dillinger. But really, if you all want to follow us, the best way to do that is on our TikTok with Digging Up Dillinger on TikTok, because we have our link tree and everything from there.
How, doing a project like this, I would imagine there's been, and we've talked about them, a lot of roadblocks, right? Is the FBI in Crown Hill Cemetery, and I have nothing against Crown Hill. I have family that's buried there. My uncle, who's this Indiana State police officer, is buried there. But that's been the biggest one, right?
I Travis could speak to this more. The roadblocks would include technical difficulties, elevators stopping when we need to go places. They would also include the FBI in this case with Crown Hill. The other side of there's you name it, we found it.
Yes.
Now, Travis, you guys are also working with a retired FBI agent. What is his role in this whole process?
Well, he's been inspirational in going through all the FBI files. It's different than normal police report writing. So having him, and he's passionate about Dillinger anyway, so having him dig up stuff literally and put this out here for us to understand and for the public to understand, and kind of getting into the mindset of the FBI agent that would be tracking John. He's been the cornerstone of this project with all the FBI lure and helping us get through it.
And what's wild is, we were talking about this during the commercial break, it seems like everybody's got a Dillinger story. You know, I was reading some of the comments that were on the live YouTube feed here. You guys were live on TikTok, and people were jumping in with their stories. You know, my grandfather had a place on Washington Street. He knew Dillinger. Everybody seems like they've got one of those tales.
Yeah, and they keep coming, too. I mean,
and you have to sift through all those, don't you?
I mean, we will not be sifting through all of them. But if there are good leads, we're happy to follow them. We're looking forward to this dropping so that we're able to actually go into stuff like this and get more detail. Look, this is a very uniquely Hoosier story, and Hoosiers have uniquely Hoosier memories of their grandparents or relatives having some sort of influence from Dillinger. So, these are going to come out of the woodwork. We'll look into it.
Do you guys talk about a working theory as to what actually happened to your great uncle?
Yeah, we do.
You guys talk about that? Like, I heard somewhere like he's living down in Florida somewhere like that or something like that.
Oh yeah, we've heard he skipped to California. I've had talking about everyone's got Dillinger stories. I've heard Dillinger stories from Mexico, Canada, Europe. So, I mean, the people everywhere.
It's like Broad Ripple stories with Nigel. I mean, it really is. It's the same thing.
But the investigative work and sifting through what's true and what's not, and what leads to follow and what leads to kind of just, leave on the back burner, that's got to be an arduous process.
We have a very specific task for the first, cached episodes here, and then we're going to let it kind of fly where we think it needs to go. A lot of it could be digging on the property or going after some more of the mystery of who he was or if he got away.
All right, we got about 30 seconds left. How can somebody help that's listening right now?
The number one thing is follow, comment, share, like normal social media stuff, but really we need to crowdfund this. We want to build up a community so impassioned about this that there is no question that you'd be willing to give $10 to have us try to go back and dig up John.
And the name of it is, and when does it drop again?
Digging Up Dillinger, John Dillinger's birthday, June 22nd, this Saturday at 12:01 a.m.
Yes.
Joe Malello, Travis Thompson.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. This has been a
Incredible.
fascinating chat. Best of luck. And when you guys find some information out, come back.
Yeah, we'll give you a
Definitely.
ticket when you're standing over his grave. As we...
Okay.
Thank you. Good stuff, guys. It's the Hammer and Nigel Show.
Hey, Hammer, you want to retire